Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to show you how to get that Nashville reverse snare sound. Today we're looking at getting a reverse snare. It's kind of a popular modern country thing, but it's a nice effect to throw into rock songs as well. It gives you kind of that swell up into the snare pop. But before we dive in here, if you are looking to dial in a repeatable workflow for getting professional sounding drum mixes, then I want you to go through my 3-step framework for mixing drums workshop. This workshop will walk you through my 3-step process that I use on almost every mix for getting pro drum mixes right from your home studio. It is a 100% free to watch on demand video training, and you can get access to that by clicking the link down below in the description. Now let's jump in here and talk about getting that reverse snare sound. Let me play you the track as it stands here. This is the intro section. It's a 7-bar loop here in the intro. You can hear how everything sounded, and I'll solo up the drums as well so you can hear what just our drums sound like before we focus in on getting that reverse snare in here. So here's our track here on the intro section. So you can hear the track overall has some nice bounce to it. I want to get some of that bounce, some of that pop going in on our snare drum as well. The kick drum has some nice bounce to it. You can see the dynamics to it, but our snare drum is very, very consistent. That's just what you're going to get from a really good drummer. Very consistent snare hits here. And I want to give the snare some bounce to it. I don't want to ruin the consistency of our snare hits here. I like the pop. I like the attack. I like the low end we get from that very consistent snare drum hit. But I want to give some pop to it, and I want to give some swell up to it. That's where our reverse snare sound is going to come in. To make this reverse snare, I'm going to use our snare top here. So take a listen to what our snare top sounds like. So that's our snare top here. What we're going to do is I'm going to create a duplicate of this track here. So the same no processing that's directly on the snare, right? Our snare top has no processing on it. It's sending into our drum bus, or not our drum bus, it's sending into our snare level here. That's where our snare processing is. So duplicating the snare here, we don't have any processing on it now. And I'm going to send it directly into the drum bus here. Let's find a good snare hit that we can use here. If I zoom all the way in, we can see where we're getting bleed, and we can see where we're getting a good snare hit. This second one here looks really nice. Let's take a listen to that. Let's find a good one we can pick out. I like that one right there. I like this other one too. So I'm between these two. Let me listen one more time. I like this one a little bit more. It feels bigger to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy just this little sliver here. We'll actually copy the whole thing here. And Alt, click, drag. We're going to copy this down to the other track here. So now we have just our snare hit here. What we're going to do is we're going to edit this so we have just the snare hit. I'm going to come up a little bit closer, and we're going to add a fade here on the back end. That way we reduce as much as possible of the hi-hat bleed that we have in there. We'll put a little fade on the beginning too. Let's take a listen to this and see what we have now. That's not too bad. I'm going to add a little bit more of a fade on the back end. See what we get here. I don't want to go too aggressive. But if we make the fade slightly exponential here, I didn't want to go too far. Let's take a listen again. Okay, that's feeling a little bit better to me. I'm going to pull the fade back just a touch here on the front end and maybe go halfway here, and we'll listen one more time. I don't want to pull out too much of that initial snare hit. That feels better to me there. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to turn off all of these guys here, and we're going to bounce directly in place. So Command B, we'll bounce that guy in place, and then we're going to come up here, and under audio, you'll see reverse audio. So Command R will reverse this guy right in place, and now we can turn our snap to grid and everything back on and just pull it right before our snare hit. And what we have now is we have our snare swell up into the original snare hit here. So take a listen to what this sounds like. So there's that kind of reverse snare, that snare swell that we can tuck underneath here. What I want to do next is put a little bit of processing on it here. I'm going to drag it out of our snare level folder here. We can put that back on. And then for this, let's see about maybe just putting a reverb or something on it, just to lengthen the back end of it. And maybe we see about doing it beforehand. That sounds okay. Let's listen one more time. I'm thinking maybe I want to put the reverb on before I reverse it and lengthen the swell in. We'll see. That I like right there. That's giving us just enough pop that'll go right with our snare drum. Let's dial it in a little bit better. Right there sounds good to me. So I shortened it enough, I pulled back the mix enough that by the time our next one comes in, because our next one's going to be right here in this block before our next snare hit, that our reverb's still not ringing out. I don't want to pile up a bunch and then we have just a bunch of reverb there. We'll throw an EQ on it here and maybe just clean up the low end. That sounds good to me. So now what we can do is we can take this little guy here and just drag him to before every snare hit. So right in the block before the snare hit. And the nice thing, we should be able to just duplicate these and they'll sit in here right before our snare hits. So let's take a listen to this loop now with just our snare, and then I'm going to put the reverse snare in here as well. So we'll call that rev snare, and we'll dial this up underneath our original snare drum. Right there feels good to me. That's the energy level I want. I want it to feel like it swells up into that final snare hit. Right here at -11, that's what it feels like. It feels like a nice swell up, and then we have our big snare hit. You don't want to go too high, otherwise you kind of neuter the impact you get from your snare hit because so much energy is coming from the actual swell. Let me show you that. I'll pull the reverse snare all the way up. Listen to the louder our reverse snare gets, the less energy it feels like our actual snare hit has. So all the way up at 0 where they're even like that, where our snare hits are hitting at the same volume, it just feels flat energy. It doesn't feel like we swell up and there's a big impact. We want that kind of impact. That's where that energy pop comes from. It helps enhance our snare a little bit and give you that swell up beforehand, that energy lift. So let's pull it back down here and get it where we want it. Kicked the reverb back in there and then pulled up the reverse snare a little bit to level everything back out. Let's throw all of our drums in now and do another level balance here and see where we're sitting with all of our drums together now. Pull everything down. Here we go. So we got it balanced in here with our track. So the more instruments we add in, the higher we kind of have to pull the reverse snare so you hear it and still feel it inside the track. Listen one more time now that we've got it balanced in our track here. As I mute and unmute the reverse snare, you can hear the energy and the kind of vibe change on our drums. So with our reverse snare in, you'll feel like our drums kind of move and bounce with the rest of the instruments in the track. So our acoustic guitars and our piano that have that bouncy rhythm to it, it feels like that's there across our drum kit, not just on the dynamics from our kick drum. And then without that reverse snare, you hear, just that constant powerful hit from our snare drum. It doesn't feel like there's that pop of energy there. Take a listen without, and then I'm going to kick it in, listen to the energy shift on our drums. All we're doing here, duplicating our snare top, grabbing a little piece of it, flipping it back, and then putting it that one beat before so it swells up into our actual snare hit. It helps emphasize the pop from our actual snare hit and give us a nice bounce for our drums to go along with our actual track here. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you are ready to level up your drum mixes, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. I want you to go through my 3-step framework for mixing drums workshop. It will help you dial in a repeatable workflow for getting professional sounding drum mixes. You can click the link below in the description to get access to that, and I will see you very, very soon in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.